Boston Herald Drive on Boston Herald Radio. Joined now in studio by Louisiana Governor, Republican presidential candidate Bobby Jindal. Bobby, thanks so much for joining us. Governor Jindal, I'm on a first name basis.
Bobby is absolutely
That's
fine.
how you introduce yourself to me, so that's cool, right?
We're from the South, absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you for having us. It's great to be here in person. I was thanking you all earlier for this beautiful weather. I know it's warm for folks up here, but for a Louisiana boy, this doesn't feel too bad.
Yeah, 95 degrees, 95% humidity is normal in Louisiana.
Unfortunately, this time of the year, it's the cost of living in paradise. Now, we don't have much of a winter, so we don't have to shovel all that snow. I went to school up here in Providence. We were talking about that earlier for 4 years, and so I know what it's like to have to deal with the snow and the ice. We don't get any of that back home.
All right, so this is a big week coming up, right? You get the debate to take place on Thursday. You're one of the few candidates that hasn't been feeling the backlash from Donald Trump. At some point, do you say that's a good thing that he hasn't attacked me? Or do you say, hey, I'm running for president, attack me, I don't want to be left out?
I think the D.C. establishment needs to take a deep breath and calm down. They need to step away from the windows, put down the sharp objects. Look, I think Donald Trump has tapped into this very genuine concern, this frustration with political correctness. But I also trust the American voters. I think as they start paying more attention to this election, this is a very serious election. Politicians will always say this is the most important election of our lifetime. Voters get that Hillary Clinton, President Obama have got us on a path, turning the American dream into the European nightmare. At least Bernie Sanders is honest enough to call himself a socialist. The other two are the same. They just don't say that. So I think the D.C. establishment needs to calm down. They're not going to get to pick the candidate. The voters will. But they're taking this election seriously, and I think that's going to be very good for me and my candidacy.
When we talked with Lindsey Graham about Donald Trump last week, he said that a Trump nomination would mean the GOP field would get killed. Do you agree with that?
Look, I think that everybody needs to calm down, trust the voters. I have a lot of confidence I've got more confidence in the American voters than the New York donors and the D.C. party leaders. They're always, every several years, it seems like there's this concern. We got too many people running. We got to clear the field. We got to anoint somebody. Voters want to decide for themselves. And, I know democracy is messy, but it is the way it works, and that is a good thing. I think our candidate's going to be stronger after this compared to the other side where they're just anointing Hillary. Look, there are a lot of candidates running that don't have the backbone, they don't have the experience, they don't have the bandwidth to get this job done. I do. And we don't just need a talker, we need a doer. Not only that, we need somebody who embraces our own principles. So you've got Jeb Bush saying you've got to be willing to lose the primary in order to win the general. I disagree with that. Let me translate. That's when the establishment says that, they're saying to conservatives, don't embrace your own principles. Try to hide what you believe so the left and the media will like you. That's nonsense. Let's stand up for what we believe in.
When you talk about things being messy, fewer things can be messier than figuring out this Fox debate coming up this week. Are you satisfied with the solution they came up with?
Look, I'm not worried about that. We're spending all of our time in early states. We're spending a lot of time in New Hampshire, a lot of time in Iowa. There was a new poll. The latest poll has us in 4th place in Iowa. We're moving up. We've spent since I've announced in the last month, we've been to Iowa 4 times. This is our 3rd trip to New Hampshire. We're coming back again. I think the best thing you can do is get in front of real live voters. And what we do is do town halls where they can ask any question they want. And I stay till the last question has been asked. And it's working. I think as voters pay attention to this and get serious about this election, we're going to do very, very well. We're the only one with detailed plans on how do you repeal Obamacare, on energy, on education, on defense. Every Republican says they're against Obamacare, but we're the only one with a plan for how you actually get rid of it.
Right, which is very important because we know that the rates for Americans are skyrocketing. My plan was canceled, even though the president promised all of us that if you like your health care plan, you can keep it. My plan, along millions of Americans, got canceled, and my rate skyrocketed, $9,000 the first year.
Well, and unfortunately, I wish we could say that you were alone. You're exactly right. This plan was sold on lies. Millions of Americans lost their health plans. Many more Americans also lost access to their doctors. You're seeing premiums go up. You're seeing these tight networks. You're seeing deductibles go up as well. Look, the reality is Obamacare did not reduce costs. It did not do what the president said it was going to do, and it also decreased freedom. It makes no sense to create a new entitlement program when we can't afford the ones we've got. Right. It makes no sense to add a bureaucrat between doctors and their patients. My plan has got 16 specific components, but it's really organized around 3 simple principles. 1, let's make healthcare affordable. So my plan, according to independent analysis, could reduce premiums $5,000 for the average family, on average for families. Secondly, let's help those that truly need help affording their healthcare, those with pre-existing other conditions. My plan does that. And third, let's put the patient in charge, not the bureaucrats in charge. At its best, America's healthcare system is the best in the world. My little boy, when he was just 3 months old, he needed open heart surgery. We actually came up here, we came up to Boston,
Right.
and we're blessed. My little boy is 11 years old now. He plays soccer, he's torturing his sister probably as we're talking right now. He's doing what kids should be doing at 11
Right.
years old. There's no other country I would have wanted to go to
Right.
get that health care. I'm so
Right.
blessed we were here in America with the best doctors, the best hospital. At its best, this is the best healthcare system, and we must not mess that up. And I worry about that with Obamacare, that you could actually reduce the innovation, reduce the quality, even without making healthcare more affordable.
And rationing of care. It's true. Which leads me to Planned Parenthood, because that's a health issue that impacts women. You've seen the horrific videos, Governor Jindal. I have as well. Everyone has. These videos are deeply disturbing. It shows high-level executives and doctors at Planned Parenthood haggling and bartering over the price of baby organs, fetal tissue. There's a movement now in Congress by Republicans to defund Planned Parenthood. Where do you stand on this?
Absolutely, we need to defund Planned Parenthood. Anybody that hasn't seen these videos, hopefully will shock folks' conscience. Now, I'm for the protection of innocent human life. We've been the most pro-life state 6 years in a row in Louisiana. But regardless of whether people are pro-life or not, I would hope even those that aren't yet pro-life would be shocked by those images, this woman eating her salad, drinking her wine, just talking about unborn babies and their organs. You know, there are allegations that they have broken the laws when it came to human trafficking and selling fetal organ parts. But even beyond that, just the grotesque way they're talking about these babies, absolutely we should defund Planned Parenthood at the federal level. In my state, when this first came out, they don't perform any abortions in Louisiana. They're trying to build a clinic in New Orleans. We said we're not going to issue any permits. Instead, we launched an investigation. We've asked the FBI to cooperate. We're working with the state of Texas as well. They've got an investigation as well. So absolutely, I would hope this would shock folks' conscience.
How big will this be in the process of electing the next president? Will it be a big issue by the time we get to that point? Maybe not so much.
Well, look, let's hope that Congress does the right thing, and let's hope that Congress defunds. I would hope even folks that may not agree with me and that may not be pro-life would say, yeah, we shouldn't be sending folks taxpayer dollars to an organization like this, that this isn't appropriate. And so I'm hopeful that even Democrats, Democrats have an opportunity in the next several days on a couple of big issues to put country above party. What do I mean by that? Planned Parenthood is one example. Another example is this flawed deal with Iran. I'm hopeful Democrats will put country ahead of party. I know the White House is putting a lot of pressure on Democrats. This is a very bad deal. This could start a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Look, it's not just Iran. You're going to have other Sunni countries like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey. They're not going to sit there and let a Shia country be the nuclear power in the Middle East. They may buy that technology from Pakistan. This is a very bad deal that threatens Israel, threatens America, threatens Europe. Syria loves the deal. Israel hates the deal. What does that tell you? Our friends hate it. Our enemies love it. You've got a deal where they keep thousands of centrifuges. No anytime, anywhere inspections. They don't have to cut off connections to Hamas, Hezbollah, these terrorist groups. You got a regime where they're chaining debt to America, debt to Israel. A regime that's going to get over $100 billion. This is the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Think about the mischief they could do. And so I'm hopeful in these next several days, next few weeks, Democrats as well as Republicans have an opportunity to put a country ahead of party. Let's hope they do the right thing in both those instances.
Do you think that, we know the President Obama would veto it. Is there anything Congress do? How many votes do they need to overturn a veto, if at all?
That's a great question. I think the Senate made a mistake when they went, it normally takes a 2/3 vote to approve a treaty. And unfortunately, they passed this bill. Senator Cotton was the only one who opposed it. That now makes it a 2/3 vote to reject it, because it'll take 60 votes in the Senate to reject the resolution. But then the president can veto it. It would then take a 2/3 vote in both chambers. And again, I think they made a mistake to flip-flop it. You think about this. Now, the president has done a better job negotiating with Congress than he has with Iran. He's declared war on trans fats, but he's making peace with Iran and giving them the nuclear capabilities. This is a mistake. I think Congress shouldn't have approved that bill in the first place. I've said I wouldn't view a bad deal as binding on me as the next president, as the next commander-in-chief. And I signed the Cotton letter to Iran, making it very clear to them, the president can't have it both ways. He can't say it's a treaty, but it's not a treaty. He can't say that it's not a treaty because I don't want a 2/3 vote, but it is binding. And so I wouldn't consider it binding. I would do whatever it takes to protect America's interest. Make it very clear we'll stand with Israel. Make it very clear to Iran we'll not allow them to become a nuclear power. We've got a similar message for Planned Parenthood. They better hope that Hillary Clinton wins. They've got more invested in her election than anybody else, because come January 2017 in the Jindal administration, the Department of Justice will be investigating Planned Parenthood, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure that they're not violating the law, that they're not receiving taxpayer dollars.
Governor, just switching gears a little bit to immigration, which is another issue that's been a hot button one. I guess we can in part thank Mr. Trump for that. But Donald Trump, as recently as last week, came out with a plan. It wasn't an overly detailed one, but a plan for how he would handle undocumented or illegal immigrants that are already in the United States. Jeb Bush and Lindsey Graham, for example, in the past have supported a path to legal status or eventually citizenship. Where do you stand? What should we do with however many millions of undocumented immigrants there are already in this country?
Sure, a couple things. One, I disagree with Jeb. Just last week, again, he doubled down on amnesty. I think that's a mistake. I think we need to secure the border, period. You know, the federal government, they talk about these 1,000-page bills, the gang of 8 bill, comprehensive approach. That's a mistake. We tried that in the 80s. They told us, give amnesty, and then they'll secure the border. They gave amnesty, they never secured the border. It's easy, once and for all, to secure the border. You know it's secure when the border state governors tell you it's secure. I think after we do that, the American people will deal compassionately and pragmatically with the folks that are here. But I want to make another point about immigration that doesn't often get emphasized enough, which is this. We need to insist on assimilation and integration. Immigration without assimilation is invasion. And what do I mean by that? We need to insist that anybody that wants to come here needs to come legally, needs to learn English, needs to adopt our values, needs to roll up their sleeves and get to work. I'm tired of the hyphenated Americans. I'm tired of the division. We used to proudly call America the great melting pot, and that is a great, great strength of ours. In Europe, you've got second, third generation immigrants that aren't parts of those societies, and that's very dangerous. We should also go further and say we are not going to allow people to come and use the freedoms we give to everybody to undermine those same freedoms for other people. I know this isn't politically correct. On the left, they try to say we're not the melting pot, we're a salad bowl. That's a mistake. One of the great, great strengths of America is this insistence that no matter where you come from, you should want to be an American if you want to come here. That's just common sense. If you don't want to be an American, don't come.
I understand that the security first needs to the American people to deal compassionately with those who are already here. What specifically does that look like in a Jindal administration?
Well, look, I know that reporters keep trying to ask, well, what about this, what about that? We cannot have that discussion until after we've secured the border. I think we've tried that before, and the problem is the American people rightfully don't trust the politicians in D.C. They've said, we don't even want to talk about that until we've secured the border. But one of the things we can and should be doing right now is cracking down on these sanctuary cities. You saw that awful, awful tragedy in San Francisco.
Yes.
Father's daughter is shot in his, literally almost in his arms, killed in his arms. That must never happen. And so what I've proposed is a partners in crime package that says hold the mayors, hold the local leaders accountable. They should be criminally as well as civilly liable as accomplices if they adopt policies, if they choose to ignore federal law. If they're allowing folks to come to their cities that are here illegally and not reporting that to ICE, ignoring that federal requirement and obligation, they should be considered accomplices. And so let's crack down on these sanctuary cities as well.
That's right, because a big frustration we all have is that there are plenty of laws in the books in our country, but they're not being enforced, and then there's no accountability. So we're going to keep seeing innocent Americans be killed by illegal immigrants.
That's exactly right. Look, you've got a Supreme Court that chooses which laws it wants to enforce. Right. According to Scalia, hordes no longer have meanings. Not once, but twice rewrites the law to save Obamacare. Tries to redefine marriage according to the Chief Justice, ignores the Constitution. You've got a president choosing which laws he wants to enforce. When it comes to immigration and Obamacare, now you've got cities, local officials choosing which laws they want to enforce. That's not right. And you're exactly right. So the shooter in the San Francisco case shouldn't have been here in the first place. Right. Multiple felonies, should have been deported, should have been detained, shouldn't have been free to walk the streets to take this innocent girl's life, the innocent woman's life. It makes no sense for these mayors, these local politicians, to be able to ignore the law, to pick and choose which laws they want to enforce. Right. You know, the way that we were all raised was if you don't like the law, go and change it. And the president doesn't have the right. He's not the first president to disagree with Congress. He may be the first president to routinely just ignore their laws. Right. Other presidents have said they're going to do the hard work of trying to get the laws changed.
Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal here with us on Boston Herald Drive. Governor Jindal, I come from a sanctuary city, Somerville, which is a neighboring city to Boston, and the police chief there says that it does work because it gets people out of the shadows. What would you say to that particular police chief?
Well, I'd invite the chief to go visit, and it wasn't just the Tate in San Francisco. I would invite him to go visit with the families of these other victims. And unfortunately, that was not an isolated or incident. Look, the reality is, if you don't like the laws, you've got to change the laws. I'm governor of a great state, and there are a lot of laws that the legislature has on the books that I don't necessarily agree with or like. That doesn't give me the right to ignore them. And I can't go to the people and say, well, I've got a better way, and I'm just going to ignore the laws they've passed, especially when it comes to folks in law enforcement. They take an oath to uphold the laws. We don't get to pick and choose those laws. And so my argument would be, enforce all the laws. If you don't like the laws, go lobby your legislators, your congressmen, your senators, and get them to try to change the law. I think these sanctuary cities it's a mistake. I think we should crack them down. And again, we call our package partners in crime. I know Congress is trying to defund them. Here's one of the ironies: a lot of these cities get federal grants to detain people that are here illegally. They're not doing that, and they're still getting those federal dollars.
Right.
So there is an effort in Congress to take away some of their money, and that's fine. But I would go further. Let's hold them as partners in crime.
Should a mayor of a sanctuary city who ignores federal law be arrested?
Absolutely. I would hold them as an accomplice, make them criminally culpable. I'd also make them civilly liable so that victims' families could sue, especially if the prosecutors aren't taking action or if the mayor's not changing their ways. I'd allow the families to go to court and sue them civilly as well to recover damages.
Do you support Kate's law? You know, Bill O'Reilly introduced it, that if an illegal immigrant comes here, commits crimes and felons, and they get deported and they come back, they would get a mandatory sentencing of 5 years in jail?
Absolutely. In case law named again for the woman who was killed in San Francisco, again, just a tourist with her father, shot and killed in his arms by somebody who had been convicted of felonies, who should have not been on the streets, shouldn't have been free to have done that, committed that crime. Absolutely, I'm a strong supporter of Kate's law. Look, we were a nation of laws. We've got to secure our border. I went to the border myself. They put over 1,000 unaccompanied minors in Louisiana. The federal government sent them without any advance warning.
Right.
Cost our school systems millions of dollars, even though they said there'd be no cost to local taxpayers.
Right.
So I went to go see for myself how folks were coming across. I was in Texas on the Rio Grande. They're not sneaking across. I mean, it's a mistake to think, oh, they're waiting for the dark of night. I saw 3 groups in the middle of the day. One group walked across, literally walked across the top of a dam. They get to a gate, and they get to a fence, and they swing the gate open. It's not even locked. You see another gate wade across, another group waded across, another group walked floated across. They get to the Texas side where there's sugar cane, they disappear, and again, we were in clearly marked law enforcement vehicles. We were in a boat, we were in a helicopter, we were in a car all throughout that day. They weren't afraid of us. It wasn't like when we thought we would call Border Patrol and they'll go get them. The reality is we've got to secure our border for several reasons. We've got to get rid of these sanctuary cities. We've got to be a nation of laws.
Governor, I know you've dealt with this version of this question a number of times, but your approval ratings in Louisiana have not been favorable. How do you sell to the American people you're going to do a good job as president when a majority of Louisiana voters don't think you've done a good job as governor?
You know, it's easy to be a popular politician. You kiss babies, you cut ribbons, you don't do anything tough. I got elected twice as governor in 2 landslide elections. My first election was the first time anybody had ever won in an open primary who was not an incumbent. My second election, my most recent election, we won we call them parishes, not counties. We won every single one. We won with a record margin, higher margin than anybody else. But then we actually got stuff done. We got elected to make the tough choices. We cut our state budget 26%. 30,000 fewer state bureaucrats than the day I took office. We've had 8 credit upgrades. We're now a top 10 state for private sector job creation. We've got more people working in Louisiana than ever before, earning a higher income than ever before. We actually reversed 25 years of out-migration. We fought the teacher unions to do statewide school choice, did our own Second Amendment in the state constitution to protect gun rights. Most pro-life state 6 years in a row. When you make the tough decisions, you're going to take on the establishment, you're going to take on the status quo folks, you're going to make them unhappy. That's what we need in D.C. I tell people, if you want somebody to manage the slow decline of our country, don't vote for Bobby Jindal. If you want somebody who'll go on there and take on the establishment, somebody who'll go and actually not just slow down the growth of government, but shrink the size of government, then vote for me. Vote for Bobby Jindal, because we'll actually get the job done.
You still have to obviously have support to get elected, get into office as you have. If you had to run for governor tomorrow, do you think you'd win?
Sure, absolutely. I'd be able to make the case that we are better off than we were before. I'd be able to make the case that when I was first elected, we were coming out of Katrina. The largest city in our state was reeling. People didn't know whether we were going to rebuild or not. Now look where we are 10 years later since Katrina. In New Orleans, nearly 100% of the kids are in charter schools. We have doubled the percentage doing reading and math on grade level in just 5 years. We just this weekend opened up a brand new hospital, the most modern healthcare system you'd probably be able to find anywhere. And the VA is going to be joining us next year with their own part of that venture. You look at the economy, stronger than it was before. And again, you look at different indicators. We did what we said we were going to do. We privatized the charity hospital system. We shrank government, and this is something the Democrats don't understand. We have to make a fundamental choice in this election. Do you grow the government economy, or do you grow the private sector, the real world economy? You can't do both. We grew the real world, the private sector economy. Our per capita income ranking is the highest than it has ever been in our state's history. And so what we've done is we have purposely reduced the size of government, grown the private sector economy, and it's working. That's what we need in D.C. 7 out of the 10 boom counties have been in the nation's capital. That's not sustainable. That's not the real economy. $18 trillion of debt. Our federal government is going to swallow the private sector economy if we don't make big changes.
Just to go back to Planned Parenthood, this is such a big issue because, as you know, Planned Parenthood benefits from $500 million in taxpayer dollars each year. Yet now, even if you take the abortion issue out of it, our country splits. Some support it, are pro-choice. Others are vehemently against it. They believe it's baby murder. Even putting that issue aside for one moment, shouldn't the IRS be auditing Planned Parenthood simply for the fact that they're a nonprofit? They've been given nonprofit status, yet the doctor's been caught on tape haggling over the price. Now, if they're not selling fetal baby tissue, which is a felony, shouldn't the IRS be auditing their books? Because we know right away whether they were profiting off the exchange, let's call it, or sale of this baby tissue.
Absolutely. The IRS, the Department of Justice, absolutely. Look, the president, he gets outraged by so many things. He investigates. He's got the IRS going after conservative groups for their beliefs.
Right.
Absolutely. We should be looking. And as I said earlier, Planned Parenthood better hope that Hillary Clinton wins, because in the Jindal administration, we'll be going after them. The Department of Justice will be going into Planned Parenthood. The reality is we've got an investigation at the state level. We need one at the federal level as well. I think, and to your point, there are people that may not necessarily be pro-life that are still shocked. Their conscience is still shocked by what's going on.
That's right. And then also, is Planned Parenthood even needed anymore? Even taking the abortion issue out of it, Planned Parenthood says, well, we need the money because we're providing all these great health services for women like mammograms and certain screenings, but that's all covered, pretty much all of it is covered under Obamacare compliant plans. So isn't this redundancy now?
Well, the left tries to have it both ways. That's a great point. They want to have Obamacare, they want to have the new entitlement, and they want the direct payments to these old provider of services. But regardless, even above and beyond the duplication, I would just say on principle, it is time for us to stop sending taxpayer dollars to Planned Parenthood. I hope the Senate does the right thing. They've got an opportunity to do that. I understand they'll be taking a vote today. It's time for the folks we elect to do what they promised us they were going to do. It's so easy for them to say one thing and then do another. I think voters are tired of that. We got a lot of folks that make great campaign promises. Remember, when they were running, when they asked us to give them the majority in the Senate, these Republican candidates said, if we vote for them, we're going to actually stop the illegal amnesty. We're going to repeal Obamacare. We're going to shrink the size of the federal government. They didn't do those things. And so now here's an opportunity for them to do what they said they were going to do. If they don't, I think you're going to see a lot more frustrated voters. There'll be accountability. I think D.C. doesn't understand how frustrated people are in the real world. I think when they get outside of D.C., they'll be amazed how frustrated people are, not just with Democrats and liberals, but with the establishment as well. They look at Republicans and say, what's really changed since we gave you the House and the Senate? And they don't want incremental change. They want big change. They get the fact that we're on the path to, we're becoming more and more like Europe, and we are turning the American dream into the European nightmare. They want to get off that path. And they've heard too many empty and broken promises for too long. Look, this president needed on-the-job training. He had never run anything before we elected him president of the United States. We can't afford to make that mistake again. There are a lot of smooth talkers. We need someone who's actually done something.
Governor, you may have noticed our splash today. That could be your face tomorrow, so we'll see how it works. But Biden, his time. Joe Biden now, it seems, may get into the race. What do you think about a potential Biden candidacy?
Well, first, I think it would be a gift to the late-night comedians and all of you guys that talk about politics. I mean, the reality is, I used to joke the busiest guy in D.C., the second busiest guy in D.C. is the guy that has to go out there after President Obama and say he doesn't mean what he said. Remember President Obama, not once but twice, said they had no strategy to deal with ISIS. And then quickly somebody came out and said, well, the president didn't really mean. The busiest guy is the guy in D.C. who has to do that for the vice president. He has to go out there and say, well, look, Vice President Biden really didn't mean what he said. I actually think on the Democratic side, an open contest would be better for them. I think this idea they're just going to coronate Hillary is a mistake. I think she should get out of the rope lines, go talk to voters, go shake hands, answer questions, go actually meet with reporters, answer their questions. go and do town halls where, she did a town hall recently, and somebody asked her about the Keystone Pipeline, and she wouldn't answer the question.
Right, it's ridiculous.
This is amazing. She wants to be President of the United States, and she
Right.
says, because I was Secretary of State, I'm not able to answer that question. Just tell us whether she's for or against it on
Right.
issue after issue. She even refuses to embrace her failed record as Secretary of State. The only thing she's ever run is the president's failed foreign policy.
Right.
She was behind the reset with Russia. Well, Putin is now in the Ukraine. She was at the
Right.
heart of their Middle East approach. Now ISIS is on the march. China is ascendant in Asia. And yet, this is a candidate who is so reluctant, wouldn't tell us for a long time where she was on Fast Track Authority, wouldn't tell us where she was on the Keystone Pipeline, refuses to take a position. So I think the more Democrats that run, the better. Maybe they can get her to answer some questions, take a position. I actually think it'd be better for her, not that she wants my advice in terms of her candidacy, but I think a primary contest would actually strengthen their nominee. This whole coronation, I think, is a huge mistake.
Well, along the lines of being for or against, I go back to what we talked about a few minutes ago. Can you tell us today whether you're for or against a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants?
Again, I'm for securing the border. I'm against any discussion beyond that because I think it's a mistake. And I know folks will keep trying to say, well, yeah, that's great, but let's get into this or that. I'm against amnesty. I didn't like what President Obama has tried to do unconstitutionally. I'm against what Jeb has supported as well. But look, folks can ask me this as many times as they want. There's a principled reason I think we've got to secure the border first. And I think if we make the mistake like we did in the 80s, and they did this again under Reagan, under the Congress back then, they said we were going to do this comprehensive approach. What happened was they got amnesty, we didn't get the border secure. And I worry that if we start having that discussion again, that's exactly what will happen again.
Is there anything other than amnesty you would completely rule out? Like, would you rule out deportation, for example, a mass deportation?
Again, secure the border, then I think the folks will deal with the folks that are here practically and compassionately. I will say our immigration system is broken. I think a smart immigration system can make our country stronger, not weaker. Right now we've got a low wall and a narrow gate. A low wall means it's too easy to come here legally, too hard to come legally. We need a high wall and a broad gate. High wall meaning you secure the border. A broad gate meaning if people do want to come legally. As I said earlier, if they want to learn our language, adopt our values, and go to work, one of the dumbest things we do is we educate people in our country and then we kick them out to compete against us. I think if people want to come here legally and contribute to our economy, that can be a good thing for our country.
Right.
We do need to make it easier for folks who want to come legally and follow the rules. But right now, what we need to do in the standalone bill, the only reason you need a comprehensive bill, the only reason for a 1,000-page bill is to stack it up against the border. Maybe it could help with the wall. You don't need 1,000 pages to secure the border. Secure the border. The other thing I'll say is the Senate, they're the only people in America who say, we've done something because look at all the money we've spent. So during this debate, they said, oh, look, we secured the border because we spent all your money. The only way, I think the best way to know the border's secure, ask the border state governor. You got a Democrat in California, you got Republicans in these other states. Ask them. They're the ones that see the consequences first. They're the ones who live with this, that are right there on the front lines. Let them tell us when the border's secure.
Governor, we have thousands of people listening in New Hampshire right now, and what they want most is to not become Massachusetts. So when you said that about sanctuary cities and the lawlessness of them, if you are sworn in president today, Mayor Curtatone has said in Somerville that this is a sanctuary city no matter what happens to him.
Well, I think Congress, and what I've said is even before I'm president, Congress needs to pass this bill, my package of bills calls Partners in Crime that say, all right, mayors, councilmen, not only, right now they're trying to debate cutting off their funding. That's great. But we need to go beyond that and say, mayors, councilmen, if you're going to flout, and this is what they're doing, they're flaunting federal law, there should be two consequences. One, they should be criminally liable as accessories. And they should be held liable for the crimes that are committed by the folks that are here illegally in these so-called sanctuary cities. And secondly, we'll say to the families, we'll give you the opportunity to go to court and hold them civilly liable. You can sue not only those officials that are allowing these sanctuary policies, but also those that refuse to prosecute those officials. You can go and get your damages either if you're a victim of a crime or the family of a victim of a crime. If these folks are intent on flaunting federal law, they should face the consequences. If they're going to be accessories to these crimes, we should hold them criminally liable.
So mayors like Curtatone could find themselves arrested?
Absolutely. If there should be a consequence. If you're going to flaunt federal law, there should be a consequence. And you shouldn't be able to do it without a consequence. And anybody that wants to be a partner in crime should be open to facing the consequences, both criminally as well as civilly.
Governor Jindal, just to go touch upon ISIS, it's a growing threat. We hear in the news, whether it's here in Massachusetts, unfortunately it's a hotbed of terrorism here, almost every week somewhere in this country, ISIS is getting nabbed by the FBI for attempts to attack our country. If you were Commander-in-Chief, what would you do to win this global war on terror? Because obviously President Obama doesn't have a strategy and we are losing this war on terror.
Absolutely. So first, what we need to be doing overseas, and then secondly here at home. Overseas. We need to be working directly with and arming and training the Kurds. They've been the most effective force on the ground, yet we're only going through Baghdad. Right. Secondly, if we were serious about winning this conflict, our Sunni allies would be doing more to help us.
Right.
When you saw that failed red line with Assad, where he stayed in power, all of a sudden a lot of our Sunni allies said, well, wait a minute, if we help beat ISIS, then all of a sudden if we're helping Assad, that helps Iran. So how serious is America in terms of winning this fight? Third, we need to take off the political handcuffs. So the president went to the Congress and said, give me a 3-year deadline, give me a ban on ground troops. Now, I don't think anybody's arguing to send a bunch of ground troops right now, but why in the world would you tell the enemy, this is what we're going to do, this is what we won't do?
Exactly.
Instead, say, we're going to do whatever it takes to win. Take off the political handcuffs. No commander-in-chief should ever send troops into harm's way unless we give them a plan and the support to win. I don't want our troops to ever be in a fair fight. I want them to dominate any potential conflict. Right. What we should be doing here at home. We need a commander-in-chief. We need a president who's got the moral honesty and clarity to tell us, look, Islam's got a problem. That problem is radical Islam. Right. We need to stop criticizing America, stop apologizing for our country, stop criticizing medieval Christians and the Crusades, stop declaring war on trans fats, and say, we are taking this enemy seriously. And as commander-in-chief, our president needs to say to Muslim leaders, it's not enough to condemn generic acts of violence. You've got to condemn the individuals by name and say they're not martyrs who are going to enjoy a reward in the afterlife. And then secondly, that these same folks that want these freedoms, that Muslim leaders need to say that they support the same freedoms for people of other beliefs, that the same freedoms they want for themselves, they support religious liberty and other freedoms for people with different religious beliefs than their own. I know it's not politically correct to say this, and I know that when you say things like this, the left will say, oh, you're anti-Muslim. That's nonsense. Right. Islam's got a problem. That problem is radical Islam. How are we going to beat an enemy if we're not willing to name it and confront it? I do give praise to Prime Minister Cameron a couple of weeks ago. He had the courage to give a great speech where he said that this is about ideology. It's not about development. In Islam, he talked about the evil ideology that's radical Islam. We've got a president that goes to the Pentagon and says we're not going to win this conflict with guns. It'll be a generational conflict. So we got to win hearts and minds. Thank God Generals Patton and Eisenhower didn't have that approach in World War II. Exactly. The French would be speaking German right now if they said World War II was simply a propaganda war. We're going to have to hunt down and kill these terrorists.
We've covered a lot of important topics, but none has really fired up people and impassioned them like this next one that we'll wrap up with. Where do you stand on Tom Brady and his 4-game suspension? As a fan of the team who was also harshly punished by this commissioner.
I was going to say, don't even get my boys on your show. They're still upset about Downeygate. They still think we were robbed, and they will be more than happy to talk to you about the injustices of the NFL and their system. I'll say a couple of things. In tying back into what we were talking about earlier, and to make a little light of this, but also on a serious point, Hillary Clinton thinks that her emails have been permanently deleted. Tom Brady, they think his texts have been permanently deleted. The reality is the only way we're going to see Hillary's emails, we ask the Chinese, Russian hackers. They probably have them, and that's the only way we're going to get them. Right. Tom Brady, what he's guilty of is winning a Super Bowl. Hillary Clinton, she's guilty of actually losing our national secret. So I think if you want to tie in Tom Brady to the political scene, you can say they've both been involved in these emails and texts. He's a fierce competitor. Look, I know we're obviously I'm a Saints fan, but every time we play against the Patriots, I know we try to play up. It is an incredible, incredible team. Drew Brees and Tom Brady, it'll be a lot of fun to watch them. I hope they'll get a chance to play against each other in this upcoming Super Bowl. Two great quarterbacks. Both of them have had incredible careers. I think both of them still got a lot left to give. It'd be a lot of fun to watch them going up against each other.
You got one game to win. Who are you taking, Brady or Brees?
Brees. Look, I'm a Saints fan. You'll get politicians that'll lie.
You had me right up until
now. You'll get politicians to tell you whatever you want to hear. Not me. I'm a Saints fan.
Appreciate your honesty. And if the president thing doesn't work out, you can always make a run for NFL commissioner. The pay's a lot better.
As far as the quarterback question, you're both wrong. It's Aaron Rodgers. Stop. It's not even a question.
Get Scott Walker here to answer that.
How do you let him on the air here?
I understand. That's right.
I ask that every morning.
Yes. I know. I'm sure people that sign the check probably say the same thing. Governor Bobby Jindal, thanks so much for joining us, running for Republican presidential nomination. Good luck at the debate on Thursday. We'll be watching.
Thank you all very much. Folks can go to bobbyjindal.com to learn more. Thank you guys very much for having me today.
All right, anytime. For Chris Villani, for Adriana Cohen, for Tom Shattuck, I'm John Sapichetti. Thank Matt Fitzgerald and AJS for putting this together. Up next is Morning Meeting with Hillary Chabot.
Thank you so much, sir. We went over there. You guys were great.